Okay. Man, it is good to be back. Whew. It's been one heck of a month. A lot of life happening. All right. Let's get going, shall we? Why am I not able to scroll? What's happening here? Page? Oh dear. Oh dear. Technical difficulties right off the bat. Really? Okay, actually, what is happening? The screen is just black. Chrome? Are you okay? You okay there, Chrome? Hello? Okay. What? Okay, let's try a new window, shall we? There we go. All is as it should be. Theoretically. Okay. Everything's fine. Nothing's wrong. All right. Let's get started. Because we're off to a great one. I forgot to check if I'm actually audible over on my other machine, but whatever. This is fine. We're just going to roll with it and hope that everything is working correctly, which obviously is definitely always the case. All right, who the heck is talking here? Wildbow, please. Okay. Eric and Crystal. All right. So, Crystal. So, Crystal and Eric. Got it. Okay. Cool. Let's do it. Arc 19, Infrared, Chapter 9. Oh my god! You are so annoying! No, I'm not. You're not? Oh, I'm sorry. I must be mistaken about how I'm ready to strangle you! I'm not doing anything. You're following me! I walk into a room and you're 2 steps behind me. Where am I supposed to go? Your room? Anywhere else? Crystal. Crystal turned away in a huff. Come and talk to us in the kitchen, Aunt Sarah asked. Eric retreated into the living room, plunking himself down into a chair, slumping down so his arms were up on the armrest, feet on the floor, and his upper body stretched along the seat, chin against collarbone. He looked at us without moving his head. What's up? I asked. He shrugged. How's she doing? I asked. He shrugged, then mumbled. There were some days she was really scary. I had no idea what she'd do. Mostly now, she's extra teenager-ish, I guess. He sighed, dramatic. It's tough being the odd one out, isn't it? Amy asked. She was sitting on the short couch beneath the window, feet curled up beside her, a folded book in her lap. Really tough. Do you want to talk about it? Amy asked. Nah. You can reach out to us any time, Amy said. Okay, thanks, I guess, He got up and pulled a controller out from under the television. He flipped the switches to turn the TV and console on, and it thwoomed with the console's startup sound. He held out a controller, offering it up to Amy and me. "Reading," Amy said. "Thanks, though." "What game?" I asked. "Q*bert Quart," he offered. "Or Princess Run." "Are you offering that to me because I'm a girl?" I asked him. "Crystal likes it, so I figured." "Dean likes it too," I noted, recognizing the art on the box. "No thanks, not really in the mood. I'll watch." "I was just being polite anyway," Eric said. He loaded up a game and swiped 2 cards from the stack by the console before sitting down. The room was soon filled with music. Amy took a second to pull a throw blanket down from the back of the couch and toss it over her legs and feet before picking up her book. I walked around the end of the couch, leaning over the arm, my head parallel to hers as I read over her shoulder. "You're distracting me," she said. Her head moved, frizzy brown hair mashing into my face as she butted her head lightly into mine. "Who's Roraxia?" I asked. "Do you want to read this after I'm done?" she asked. "Emphasis on after." "Depends. Is Roraxia cool?" "She's the bad guy. And yeah, I guess." "Is the good guy cool?" I asked. "No," Amy said, sighing. "Almost never in books." "In your books, maybe." "It's the appeal, isn't it? Peasants, criminals, orphans, they get a chance and they become cool by the end of the book." I snorted, got up, and took my seat at the other end of the short couch. I stuck my feet out and wormed them beneath Amy's blanket. "Your feet are cold," Amy told me, kicking me in the shin. "So are yours," I said, grabbing the corner of the blanket and pulling it away from her foot. "Now they're colder." What ensued was like thumb wrestling, feet kicking at and pushing against feet in a battle for control. She wasn't trying very hard, though, because she had her eyes on the book. The battle was less about the feet and more about me trying to get her attention as much as she tried to avoid giving it to me. "You need to shave your legs," Amy said. "It's like sandpaper." "Gross," Eric said, not taking his eyes off of the game. I stumbled a little bit there. 19.9, just over halfway of Worm. Yeah, right? It's actually, I think it's less based on word count. I think halfway of Worm is like Arc 21 or something. It's kind of crazy. Or no, maybe it was Arc 20. I think that's what it was. Halfway in word count is Arc 20 of Worm. But yeah, nuts. Yeah, I'm going. It's good to be going again. I've had a heck of a month. A lot of life happened. So yeah, it's good to be back recording again. Still cool physically? Yeah. Yep, the ventilation system's doing the job. It's keeping me from melting. Still cool figuratively? Always. Yeah, the ventilation system's working. It's doing its job. Thankfully, it's I can hear it very, very slightly through my headphones, but for whatever reason, the mic doesn't end up picking it up. I think because it's directly behind the mic. I've tried various positions, and I think this one works the best. But like, I can hear a very, very, very faint buzzing. Not buzzing. Humming, I guess. Yeah, Ward was 20 arcs, and then the epilogues. Sure is. And the funny thing is, despite 19.9 being about halfway through Worm, word count wise, I'm about to finish Worm. Because I think Word was like 1.97 million or something. So I think, I forget what chapter we passed it, but I think it was, actually, wait, maybe we already have passed it. At some point, I should tally up how many hours this audiobook is. Gross, Eric said, not taking his eyes off of the game. I don't know if Ward felt shorter. I don't know. So Ward I followed live, and Worm I didn't, so I had very different interactions with the two of them. But it's also been over a year since it ended, so it's a little hard to remember. Your legs, Amy said. It's like sandpaper. Gross. Wait a minute. Oh, I'd already scrolled past it. Whoops. There we go. Your legs, Amy said. It's like sandpaper. Gross, Eric said, not taking his eyes off the game. It gives me the heebie-jeebies, Amy said. Like the squeak from markers on a whiteboard or sneakers on the gym floor. Tiny hairs sticking in the underside of your feet, I teased her. And when you walk, you're walking on them and pushing them in deeper. She pulled her feet away like I was on fire and shivered visibly, putting her book down. My victory. I kept going. And when they grow, they're pointed in the wrong direction, so they grow in. Amy made incoherent sounds of protest. I'm pretty sure it doesn't work that way, Eric said. It probably doesn't, I said. I let my head loll back into the armrest behind me, no longer fighting with Amy. We're supposed to take a science class next. Wow. I let my head loll back into the armrest behind me, no longer fighting with Amy. We're supposed to take a science class next semester. Chemistry, biology, or physics, Amy clarified. We got the sheet in homeroom. Also art, music, or drama. Same. What did you pick for science? Chemistry. Physics is the advanced kids stream and is supposed to... Stop it. It's the advanced kids stream and is supposed to be hard, and biology you might have to... Okay. Haha, doesn't like dissecting things. Same. What did you pick for science? Chemistry. Physics is the advanced kids stream and is supposed to be hard, and in biology you might have to dissect frogs. No, thank you, Amy answered. Ick. I thought there would be some parts of it that are useful for health and fitness, first aid. You're thinking about CAPE stuff, Amy said. Naturally. And I bet you picked drama. Art, I told her. At least for the 1 year. I'm not very good at it, but there's emblems and icons, color mechanics, costumes, poses, and posture. Amy snorted. Of course. I picked art too, mostly by process of elimination, so we might be in the same class. Cool. She picked her book up again, and I let her, watching as Eric fought a dragon, poorly. I watched his second and third attempts before starting to give tips. You want to avoid that? I know I want to avoid it, but where am I supposed to go? The ground is lava. Maybe don't spend so much time near the part of the boss fight where there's lava. Oh my god, he groaned. You keep on taking the big hits when you stop to heal. It takes too long. And if I don't heal, I die. So don't get hit. Oh my god, he groaned again. Do you want to try? You'll have to tell me the controls, I said. I got up and out of my seat and walked over. Still on the couch, Amy reclaimed the blanket and tucked it under her feet. I smirked. I only barely had the controller in my hand when the door opened. They were all wearing civilian clothes, but my impression of them was that they were the team, no longer just the adults. They looked serious, instead of looking like family. Mom, Dad, Uncle Neil, Aunt Sarah, and Crystal. "Are you near a save point?" Aunt Sarah asked. "Or pause and turn the television off. You can get back to it after." "Yeah, serious." "This isn't a game with save points, Mom," Eric said, before taking the controller from me and going to the menu to save. I retreated to the couch and sat in the same spot as before. I motioned for Crystal to come sit between Amy and I, and she remained where she was, opposite end of the room, leaning against the doorframe. "We wanted to have a talk," Uncle Neil said. "Crystal is joining the team," my mother said. Her arms were folded. Crystal nodded. "Was that ever in question?" I asked. "She could have decided to join the wards," Aunt Sarah said. "People would figure out who I am pretty fast," Crystal said, looking down and to the side. Somehow, she didn't look happy, which was crazy to me. "And it would hurt the team." "We wanted to talk with you because of what happened to Crystal," Aunt Sarah said. "Based on what's happening elsewhere, and how Carol and I both got powers, we wanted each of you to be aware of what might be coming down the road." "We'll get powers," I said. "Probably," my dad said. "Possibly. I know you know the answer, but do you know how?" "Trigger events," I said. Amy spoke up. "This is like having a math whiz in the class, putting her hand up every time a question is asked. I'm not that bad." "It's more serious than math class," Uncle Neil said. "Eric, do you understand about trigger events?" "That's the day you get powers?" Eric asked. "It's what makes you get powers. It's a very important moment." "One of the best or worst days of your life," I said. "It can be," my uncle said. "If you want it to be a good day," my mother said, "the best thing you can do is be a good student, a good athlete, and the best person you can be. Strive for things and then accomplish those things." "Great," Amy said. "I'm doomed." "But," Aunt Sarah said, and it sounded like a sentence. She gave my mom a look. "As far as we can tell, it's rare. You should absolutely try to improve your chances, especially Victoria and Eric. The powers seem to run in the family, and getting a good trigger would help reduce the chances that you get a bad one. We don't know if the chances are as high for you, but it would behoove you to get your grades up, Amy," my mom said. "Great," Amy said, making a face. "I've been urging you for some time to join a club, a team, make your own friends." Oh, what is going on out there? Too much creaking. My mom said. "Great," Amy said, making a face. There, okay. My mom said. "Great," Amy said, making a face. "I've been urging you for some time to join a club, a team, make your own friends. You have too contained a life." "That's not what we're here to talk about," Aunt Sarah said. "Again, yes, I think it would be good to focus on success, but we should be prepared for the other cases. If something happens, if you have a really bad day and you get hurt or scared or angry, then it's possible you could have a bad trigger event, and it's hard. Right now, Crystal is going through a lot. Neil, me, Mark, Carol, we all went through it." "All bad?" Amy asked. "Yes, Amy." a second. Okay. We all went through it. What is going on out there? We all went through it. All bad? Amy asked. Yes, Amy. What happened? Eric asked. I braced myself, ready for my mom to shut it down. Your mother and I were kidnapped, my mother said. They kept us in a dark basement for a long time, and then they tried to kill us. I blinked, my head swimming as I absorbed that. Things made sense now. I had so many more questions. Neil had the accident, which you know about, my Aunt Sarah said. I knew. They'd met in the physical therapy after. Her for a riding injury, him for his trigger. Mark? I was on a boat when we were attacked, my dad said. The point is, my Aunt Sarah stressed, we need you to be aware that this is a thing that happens. Very often, when we get powers, it isn't always easy, fun, or great. We need you all to be gentle with Crystal, not to pry, not to pressure. Give her space, and let her handle things in her own way. I felt frustrated at that, yet I couldn't say anything. They were saying this because I'd been asking her questions before. As you grow up, and we What's going on here? Say anything. They were saying this because I'd been asking her questions before. As you grow up, and we bring you more... Say anything. They were saying this because I'd been asking her questions before. As you grow up, and we bring you to more events where capes are present, it's important to remember that many of them have been through the same... Oh, no, that's her mother. God damn it. Say anything. They were saying this because I'd been asking her questions before. As you grow up, and we bring you to more events where capes are present, it's important to remember that many of them have been through the same, my mother said. It's a question of courtesy and cape politics. I nodded at that. It's not just others. We need you to be gentle with yourselves, Uncle Neil said. Be prepared and be aware. When Sarah triggered, she hurt people, badly. I did the same. And I took a life, my mother said. My eyes widened at that. There was a pause, a break in the flow of conversation. And it was my mom, wearing a sweater, her hair long, looking much like a mom, with sunlight coming in from the window, and I could see it in her eyes. The fact that she had to come to terms with that. We weren't going to mention that, Aunt Sarah said, indicating Eric. I almost killed someone too, Crystal said. I wasn't sure how to even imagine that. I wasn't sure Crystal could even imagine... Oh, wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. Ha, thanks, Fyodor. Crystal said. I wasn't sure how to even imagine that. I wasn't sure Crystal could even imagine it from the look on her face. All I knew was that some sketchy people had recognized her and followed her off the bus, running after her while she ran. When she ran. Pretty much the same, but might as well do it now. I wasn't sure Crystal could even imagine it, from the look on her face. All I knew was that some sketchy people had recognized her and followed her off the bus, running after her when she ran. I only knew that much because my mom had told Amy and me to be extra careful. I'm having difficulty with the X's today. People had recognized her and followed her off the bus, running after her when she ran. I only knew that much because my mom had told Amy and me to be extra careful and had insisted she or Dad drive us if we went anywhere. "They're mad now, apparently," Crystal said, hugging her arms to her body. "They want to get revenge." "Often the case," my dad said. "Bad begets bad." I could tell that my parents' approach to things wasn't really jibing with how Aunt Sarah had wanted to approach it. A little too serious when Eric was 3 years younger than me and Amy. "It might happen to you," my mother said. "Chances are the time it happens won't be a time you're capable of being your most rational. But that makes it all the more important that you make resolutions and understand things now. There's a good chance. That makes it all the more important that you make resolutions and understand things now. There's a good chance that when you're facing the worst day of your life, you might be in a position to do irreparable harm to someone." "I don't think I'm the type." "I didn't think I was the type—" Oh, no, that's Amy. God damn it. Wildbow, why have you stopped including the worst day of your life, you might be in a position to do irreparable harm to someone? "I don't think I'm the type." "I didn't think I was the type either, Amy," my mother said. "That makes it easier for the moment to catch you off guard." "It's not all fun and games," my dad said. He met my eyes as he said it. Aunt Sarah opened her mouth, like she wanted to say something, but she couldn't refute the fact. "If I could go back," Crystal started. She stopped, aware that every set of eyes was on her. Her eyes moving so she wasn't looking at anyone at all, she went on. "I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't want these powers." "I'm so sorry, Crystal," Amy said. Crystal shrugged. "That's crazy," I said. "Victoria!" My mother's voice was stern. "We were just talking about sensitivity." "But you can fly, Crystal." "And every time I do, it feels a bit like I'm still running away from those people," she said. "That's a reality for many of us," my Aunt Sarah said. A woman I'd associated with warm hugs, pumpkin cookies, and all of the cool "my relative is a superhero" stuff without the "also my parent" crap. Except now she was talking from a place of darkness and hurting people. "I hope I never get powers," my sister said. I saw Crystal nod. I still wanted them. I needed them. Still, for the first time, I felt trepidation. Because my mom, the toughest person I knew, looked scared for me. Insert time jump beat here. The rooftop was covered in chairs and glass tables with umbrellas sticking out of them. They were intended for sun more than for rain, but they did catch the rain from above, turning it into trickles that ran off the low points. Dean was at one edge of the roof, in his shining armor, lights tracing the edges and making him seem bright even in the darkest shadow. He let the rain fall on him without protest or trying to cover up, and turned as he followed my descent. I chose an open area, just to be safe, and came to a full stop, a full foot. A full stop, a full foot. Okay. And came... Started over back here. Him without protest or trying to cover up, and turned as he followed my descent. I chose an open area, just to be safe, and came to a full stop, a full foot above the ground, so I wouldn't mess up and break the roof. I landed on the very far side of the rooftop. I could see Vista leaning against the railing, and the rain that came down above her was parted, leaving her utterly dry, even without an umbrella or shelter. Some people on the street took pictures and waved, and she waved back. She didn't wave at me. "Vista," I said. "It's nice to meet you."
"We've seen each other around," she said. "Events."
"I know, but we haven't met."
"Yeah," she said. "Are you going to surprise us and turn out to be a bad guy?"
I made a face like I was considering it, then said, "Never a possibility."
"Welcome to the side of the good guys, then,"
she said, without sounding very happy about it. No smile. I guessed it wasn't terribly fun to stand around in the rain, however dry she was, because Gallant and I were meeting.
"Thank you," I told her. "You're my senior, technically." "Barely."
"You've still been at this longer than me, already going out on patrols."
"It's a babysitter patrol. Gallant's babysitting me, and Challenger is babysitting the both of us. She's down in the bar below. The owner let us up onto the roof so you could do whatever."
I hoped Challenger wouldn't interrupt. I felt antsy.
"Why didn't you go straight to him?"
Vista asked. "Nervous," I admitted. "I haven't told my sister or my parents that I'm this nervous or freaked out."
"If they have powers, they get it."
"My sister doesn't."
"Wasn't Laser Girl?"
"Cousin."
"Oh."
"I thought I'd come say hi to you first. Respect to a fellow hero, because if Dean and I get to talking, or if you get orders to leave, I might not get the chance after, and I don't want to be rude." I saw her nod slowly. Down on the street, someone's camera flashed. The railing warped, going from a flat line to a circle, framing Vista. She grabbed the sides and leaned out. "Careful!" Dean raised his voice.
"He thinks I'm helpless or something,"
Vista said. She smiled, and I could see that one of her teeth was missing. Then she jumped off the roof. Dean made an incoherent sound and started running over. Vista, meanwhile, had a very short distance to drop, as she'd warped the space between her and the ground, by raising the ground up in a kind of pedestal. On landing, she sat, her feet dangling just a bit over people's heads as they ringed around her. Dean reached the rooftop's edge, my side. He relaxed as he saw her safe and sound. She adjusted her feet, sitting cross-legged on top, and began answering questions. I watched him turn his helmet my way. He gave me a long, serious look, before his gauntlet reached up and over, between my hood and my hair, touching my head. "I like her," I said, aware that there was a possibility she could hear me. "I spend a lot of time trying to get you to crack and show me the real you that's behind the mask, and it looks like she's already got it nailed." "I can't see what you're feeling," he said. "I thought maybe," I said, a fragmented, incomplete sentence. I felt like we were on our first date all over again. "You should move your hand. People might see us. The, whole thing about me dating Dean Stansfield. It could complicate things if you're... We should figure out what we're doing about our relationship." He dropped his hand. Who is talking? I was watching when it happened. I blacked out. I didn't see what happened. Okay, had to shift. That's him. "It could complicate things if you're... We should figure out what we're doing about our relationship." He dropped his hand. "Right now, I want to know if you're okay. I was watching when it happened. I blacked out. I didn't see what happened. Then I had my shift. You weren't answering your calls. I thought I'd go on patrol. They said it was okay if I needed to leave any time." Thus the Challenger Gallant double babysitter for Vista. "I hope she doesn't come barging up here," he said, looking to the door, then down at Vista.
We went straight from the gym to the hospital. My mom wanted to make sure I was okay. My phone's still in my locker.
You didn't answer me before. Are you okay? I wanted to answer him, but I didn't want to lie, and I didn't want to give him the real answer. Come here, he said. I'm not getting any bad vibes. Lie, and I didn't want to give him the real answer. Come here, he said. I'm not getting any bad vibes from the crowd. Vista's safe. He pulled me a few feet away, until we weren't in sight of the people on the street. I wasn't a huge fan of being pulled, but he was wrapping his arms around me in a hug. I hugged his armored body and wished he wasn't wearing that armor.
I think I got what Crystal meant, I said.
What are you talking about?
She said it was like every time she flew, she felt like she was running away from the people who chased her the day she triggered. You don't repeat that, by the way.
Stupid of me to say it, but the day had been a lot, and I was feeling like more than one set of feelings were runaway trains. Cross my heart, he said. Metal fingertip traced an X on metal breastplate. Are you feeling like running away? I shook my head. I wasn't even sure how to articulate it. What? He asked. His metal fingertip touched my face, cool to the touch, brushing at a droplet.
I realized how far away my parents were, how far away you were. It's like something inside of me broke.
Don't break because of me, he said, like it hadn't already happened.
And when I took off, flying above the city for the first time, it's like a roller coaster ride, and my stomach just went whoosh, like I left it behind.
Yeah, he said, his voice a breath.
And at the same time, this other feeling hit me with just as much intensity when I realized how small they were, and that they couldn't fly.
I shivered.
You're cold. I'm overwhelmed.
I waited for him to speak up, because I'd just shared vulnerability, told him just why I'd triggered, as much as I'd figured it out and put words to it. I wanted it, badly, because he was the person I wanted to share this sort of thing with, and I wanted to share in his. It was the last big barrier between us. He didn't. But he undid a catch, lifted up his full-face visor, and showed me his face, lit up around the perimeter with the small lights that made the gaps of his armor shimmer and glow. He had to turn his head more than usual to kiss me, so he didn't hit me with the visor. A substitute for the answer I'd been reaching and hoping for, but I'd really wanted this, too. I told myself he could tell me later, in a more private time and place. Insert time jump beat here. And I'm going to have a sip of water. Okay. Insert time jump beat here.
Are you okay?
Chicken Little asked me. The question was loaded, and it was one I'd heard again and again. Jessica's first words on seeing me whole had been, "You're okay." Gilpatrick had asked me, my mom had asked me, my dad had asked me, Crystal had asked me. Every single one of my teammates had asked me. Again and again, the answer had been no. No. Fuck no. Are you crazy? No. Or variations on that theme, like wanting to cry when I heard it. Again and again, I'd dodged the question, avoided it, or I gave the best non-verbal cues I was equipped to give. I reached down to the side of the crater. The scene of my mom showing actual vulnerability after giving us the talk at my aunt's house changed to her sitting with me at the hospital. My uncle at the same time and place in his house, desperately trying to ensure we wouldn't become our own worst... Damn body rebelling against me. after giving us the talk at my aunt's house changed to her sitting with me at the hospital. My uncle at the same time and place in his house, desperately trying to ensure we wouldn't become our own worst enemies when we faced the worst days of our lives, one hand on his son's shoulder. The image changed to him showing a younger me how to swing a bat. Why did I think bar? Swing a bar. When we faced the worst days of our lives, one hand on his son's shoulder. The image changed to him showing a younger me how to swing a bat. Dean on the rooftop. The image dropped away. It became Dean and me at school, him and me stealing away to a corner of the library. Anyone seeing might have thought we were doing it to sneak a kiss or make-out session. He'd shown me his latest war wound, a cut at his shoulder. I showed him my back, a giant bruise after a bad landing midway through a fight. He couldn't show weakness to his parents because they didn't brook weakness. When it came to his teammates and the PRT staff, he could read their emotions, and he could sense the degree to which they cared and didn't care. Through some combination of that and his unwillingness to show weakness that might see him getting less shifts, responsibilities, and power, he didn't tell them when he was hurting, or scared. I couldn't tell my family for much the same reason. But in that spot in the library, I could put my head against his shoulder, his cheek against my forehead, and we could share our weaknesses and somehow make the us stronger. I wanted to curl up into a fetal position, lie down here, and soak in every single one of these memories and ideas. Affirmations where I'd been left thinking there was only emptiness. I couldn't when there were other things to do and an anxious kid at the crater's edge, but I wanted to. The only thing that would tie these people together would be if they were the sources of my powers. And as much as my family had tried to prepare me... Thanks, Vale. Have a good night. The only thing that would tie these people together would be if they were the sources of my powers. Where am I? Midway through that one. Okay. The only thing that would tie these people together would be if they were the sources of my powers. And as much as my family had tried to prepare me for the fact that the powers came from a dark place, mine didn't. At least, not like this. A little spooked, Chicken Little said. Can't have that, I said. I tore myself away from the images and floated over his way. Sorry. You're okay? I am better than I think I've ever been, Chicken Little. Oh? He asked. He sounded a bit confused. Okay. I looked up at the crack that loomed high above us. It felt like it was only now that the magnitude of what we were fighting was clear in front of me. I looked up at the crack that loomed high above us. It felt like it was only now that the magnitude of what we were fighting was clear in front of me. It felt like it was only now that the scale of what I'd been... Damn it, I missed the emphasis. Like it was only now that the magnitude of what we were fighting was clear in front of me. It felt like it was only now that the scale of what I'd been struggling with was becoming clear. I took in a deep breath, and it wasn't because I was bracing myself, or preparing to go shout or give an order. It was just to breathe, and I felt like I'd been taking half breaths so I could keep the other half of my lungs reserved for something else, without even realizing I was doing it. I felt almost dizzy in the present now. I blinked a few times to get the moisture out of my eyes. To extrapolate from there, thinking about Kenzie, who Aiden was here to help. Sveta, Byron, Rain, and literally everyone and every fucking thing else. Fuck, shit, damn. But it wasn't a feeling like it was attacking me or pressing in on me. I didn't feel like a pre-existing wedge was being hammered or a weak spot tested. Those wedges were still there. The weak spots were still there. Just, they were only there in their spots. All the other stuff fucking all of the other stuff, were in the spots they belonged.
What the shit are we going to do? I asked.
Get back to the others? Aiden asked. I need to pick up Kenzie's things.
Small steps first, huh? I asked.
Or big steps? Flying instead of stepping? He asked. I want to get back to Kenzie. She was acting really weird the last time I saw her.
If that's your instinct.
I want to get back to Kenzie. She was acting really weird the last time I saw her.
If that's your instinct, I think we should follow it, I said. We're done here. Thank you for showing this to me.
I took hold of him. I felt him tense.
How urgent do you think? The higher we fly, the faster we can get back to her.
I don't like heights, he told me, but I want to get back as fast as possible. Kid was a bit gallant, wasn't he? I could see why they liked him.
Keep your eyes closed, I told him. Trust me.
I can still sense the distances with my birds, he said. But he closed his eyes. He was as stiff as a board as I flew up high enough that I could move at faster than running speeds. Was it worth the delay? He asked as we flew, his voice tight. I could feel his heartbeat drumming against my side. I hesitated to answer. It was worth it to me, but I still needed to figure out if it helped in the big picture, or if the fact it helped me would let me help more in the big picture. Me, but I still needed to figure out if it helped in the big picture.
I lost my spot.
But I still needed to figure out if it helped in the big picture, or if the fact it helped me would let me help more in the big picture.
I think it might have. We'll have to see. I think I understand what Tattletale meant when she said we'd find answers, but not necessarily what we're looking for. Why she sent you on Imp's behalf.
Yeah?
This entire landscape? It's not about them, not really. It's about us.
What do we do about them, then? He asked.
I don't know, Chicken Little, I told him.
His birds had taken to the air, and his huge-as-fuck eagle was unnerving me with how close it was flying. I wasn't sure if it was an anxiety thing. He might have hoped it could catch him and slow his descent if he fell. I secured my grip.
All I know, I said, is what...
Let's just redo that. It could catch him and slow his descent if he fell. I secured my grip.
All I know, I said, is what we were doing before wasn't working.
What the hell had we even been doing before? No, that was a stupid question. I knew what we'd been doing, and why. Fighting, because we had to. But this was a problem with a lot of moving pieces, and some of those pieces were so big they were hard to wrap my head around. I thought back to lessons with Uncle Neil, lessons I'd learned in handling my mom. I thought of Dean. Tattletale had mentioned a thing when I'd described scenes I'd seen, throwing out the word submission, and it had rankled, felt wrong. Imp had laughed. That wasn't the word. That wasn't the idea. It was bigger than that.
I think I might have an idea, I told him.
What is... Oh, we're dropping, okay, he said, all in one breath. The eagle flapped its wings to control its descent.
We're safe. I've got you, I told him.
With a free hand, I grabbed the rope that Byron had used to make his way down the canyon side. A just-in-case that Aiden could see. My feet skidded along the wall, not so much to slow my descent as they kept me and Aiden steady. I looked at my team, and I could see how weary they were. When they looked at me, there was a deer-in-the-headlights look to the quality of it. I was left to wonder if... When they looked at me, there was a deer-in-the-headlights look to the quality of it. I was left to wonder if it had been there for a while, and they were on the cusp of breaking. Had I looked like that? I approached them, and I saw the image on the wall. The Simurgh. She had taken off earlier in the evening after perching on Titan Fortuna for a while. Now she wasn't on Titan Fortuna. The Titan was wounded, a crack dividing her upper body. The wolf heads that had been a wreath around her shoulders were separated by the cracks, and they were twisted, the black color bleeding away to silver. The Simurgh perched in the crack, her wings around her, and the ragged edges of the Titan were becoming wings. Gold and black became white and silver. Every other Titan of the Titan were becoming wings. Gold and black became white and silver. Every other Titan had gone still. The ones that weren't moving toward the group. I saw Titans I hadn't seen before, but I could recognize some by the design of them. Every other Titan had gone still. The ones that weren't moving toward the group. I saw Titans I hadn't seen before, but I could recognize some by the design of them. One, shadowy and wrapped in what looked like a cloak of black and jade, had a winged helmet with only shadows beneath the helmet's face. She was bent, hands out and cupped. Within those cupped hands was Wait a minute. I'm trying to remember. Oh, shit. Eidolon. It's Eidolon. Wait. God damn it, now I can't remember. It's been so long since I've read his name. I gotta look this one up again. Man. I think it's Eidolon. Pretty sure it's Eidolon. Eidolon. Yep, okay. Man, how long has it been since I've said that name? Beneath the helmet's face. She was bent, hands out and cupped. Within those cupped hands was Eidolon, one of the strongest capes in the world. He had once dwarfed Valkyrie in power. There was no reason to think he didn't have that power now. The colors of him had been changed around. A black hood with a reflective emerald face beneath, glowing with a white light. Black sleeves. A bodysuit of emerald, muscular. A great, long-fingered hand of silver with bone-white nails reached out. The shadow of Eidolon stepped down and onto the fingertip. Titans appeared from clouds of darkness, arranging themselves in a formation around their new center and commander. Other things stepped out of clouds of darkness. Not Titans, but scary enough in their own way, especially considering what all of this meant. Endbringers. One tall and narrow, of a size to rival any Titan. One small, a knot of formlessness, with faces periodically flashing out. One with a great chrome orb for a midsection, a black, whiskered head, arms, and feet mounted at different positions around that orb. There were other shapes that stood out in the dark clouds, but they didn't emerge or seem consistent, still taking shape. Almost 20 Titans, and on shoulders, on heads, on ground, on rubble, on clouds, or just floating in the air, shades like Eidolon appeared, suspended in the air. I couldn't count them. The scene on the wall changed too much. "Oh," I said. The others were wordless. The Simurgh folded her wings around herself, forming a ball shape, or treating her entire body as a closed fist. The wings swept out, unfurling, and extending longer than they had been. All across the city, it seemed, snow and wind were pushed out and away from a center point. 100,000 images flickered into existence, across every part of the chasm around us. What had been largely red and black was almost blindingly bright, comparatively, crisp and clear. Capes, people, animals, all cringing in pain. Where able, hands went to heads, knees buckled, and the fighting... Where able, hands went to heads, knees buckled, and those fighting stopped. Everywhere.
We lost.
I breathed the words.
We're about to lose,
Rain said.
It's a vision of what's about to happen. We figured out we couldn't ask about the future. This is...
Soon,
Sveta said.
It might be her, Fortuna, trying to communicate with us,
Byron said.
Then we need Kenzie, I said, so we can actually communicate. That box.
We don't have Kenzie,
Chicken Little said, his voice small behind me.
What was this, 1909? Oh dear. Where am I? Ward. 19.9. Yep. 19.9 infrared. I think that was the last, or is there a 10? Oh, we'll find out in just a moment, because I'm going for a 2 for tonight, even though I'm very hungry. 19.9 infrared. Boom. Save. And do your thing.
All right. Let's see what we got. 19.f. 19.10. There we go. All right, you are saved. Thanks, Fyodor. Have a good night. Oh, is it not? Okay, good, I caught it. There we go. Alrighty. Arc 19, Infrared, Chapter 10.
So they had to tranquilize her.
Chicken Little finished.
I think that's what it was. Syndicate cut Lookout out of our network after that.
I nodded. I looked over, and I noted the lack of any message or appearance from Imp or Tattletale. Question was, did I trust them? Their judgment call. All we had was Chicken Little's report that Kenzie had gone for a lie-down, got to talking with Candy, and then got into an agitated conversation with Candy before being frozen, being forced to take pills, and then passing out. Could we afford to get distracted?
How many pills?
Number 5 asked.
I barely remember. I could feel them on her tongue. More than one, but there was a hard edge. 1.5?
147 centimeters of height, 79 pounds. Not injected, which makes it more likely it's something to help with sleeping. There are 4 likely possibilities, but with conventional dosages we can rule out 2, unless they weren't thinking about body weight or they wanted her to overdose.
Let's assume they're not idiots,
I said, though I tensed up a bit, worrying it was a kid that had provided the dose, or Imp, who I wasn't sure I had the best judgment of.
2 possibilities. Given conventional 15 and 30 milligram loads for tranquilizers in pill form, accounting for body type. Who has insomnia?
Chris asked Chicken Little.
Tattletale? Darlene, too. She wakes up with nightmares a lot. Scares the crap out of the rest of us if she forgets to disconnect from us when she falls asleep. But Darlene doesn't take anything for it. She hates the feeling of being drugged.
Tattletale wouldn't want to be confused all day,
Chris told number 5.
Not triazolam.
Number 5 nodded.
They gave her a lower dose than they had to, even accounting for body weight. She'll be out for 1.5 to 2 hours and 15 minutes, not counting for fatigue. She doesn't sleep enough. I bet Tattletale thought that if she could get Lookout sleeping, she'd stay that way,
Chris said.
She'll be groggy, but alert-ish and wanting to throw herself into things as soon as she's awake. Chuck in some drug interactions on Powers, she'll be wonky in more ways than one.
How long do we have before that comes to pass? I asked, indicating the wall, which was now showing random scenes of Contessa handling drugs and... I'm going to redo that.
Chuck in some drug interactions on Powers, she'll be wonky in more ways than one.
How long do we have before that comes to pass? I asked, indicating the wall, which was now showing random scenes of Contessa handling drugs and syringes. Not 2 hours and 15 minutes, Rain said. Okay, I said, that's a problem.
Long shot,
Byron observed.
Maybe you should start by explaining your plan,
Sveta said.
You want to communicate with the Titan?
No, I said. I want to communicate with the person inside the Titan. We've been going about this entire thing all wrong.
I could have told you that,
Chris said. You did tell us that, I told him. They're stronger than us. We can't win a fight like this. It's all stacked against us.
Look at that, Chris said. You went to go pick up Chicken Little and you came back with Chicken Little and a brain.
Shut up, Chris,
Sveta told him.
Where is this line of thought going, Victoria?
In my old sparring matches with my Uncle Neil, before I had powers, and even after, he taught me how to fight someone bigger and stronger than you. If you're fighting someone like Ashley, like Swansong, you can't take what she's dishing out, so what do? Pray? Rain said.
You get out of the way,
Chris said. Exactly. You get out of the way. These guys, they're precogs. They aren't dishing out punches or blasts that shred space-time to disintegrate everything in their paths. They're dishing out destiny. You want to get out of the way of destiny? Rain asked.
One of my plans,
Chris muttered.
I was ready to go, but that went to hell.
I shook my head. Not getting out of the way exactly, because there's another component to fighting enemies bigger and stronger than you are. I even used this against Titan Oberon. Use their strength against them. If they swing for you, help them move in the direction of the swing, and they stumble. It's a principle in judo and other grappling martial arts, to use your enemy's momentum against them. You want to seize destiny and help it along? Rain clarified his question. Yes.
Is it too late to rescind the came back with a brain statement?
Chris asked. Let's assume they have clear goals. The Simorg wants that, whatever that was. Humanity under her sway, her with Titans, Endbringers, and an army of capes brought back from the dead to protect her. Titan Fortuna wants to bring about her with Titans, Endbringers, and an army of capes brought back from the dead to protect her. Titan Fortuna wants to bring about the end of our world so their species can try their hand at replicating. With Titans, Endbringers, and an army of capes brought back from the dead to protect her. Titan Fortuna wants to bring about the end of our world so their species can try their hand at replicating. Both have similar endpoints. But those are just that, endpoints. What happens after the end? The world is enslaved, or the world blows up, Byron said. Immediately? The slavery, it seems like. The world blowing up? Don't know.
The scene played on the walls around us as we talked about them. By the time Byron was done talking, there was one scene on one wall and another on the other. Cracks spreading, the entire world turned to crystal, and the entire world with their heads in their hands.
It takes a short while to roll out when initiated,
Number 5 said, pointing.
40 minutes.
Then that's our goal and our window of opportunity,
I said.
Titan Fortuna wins. She pushes the world to the brink.
And we push it back? Rain asked.
Let's hope, I told him. We need to talk to the person inside the Titan to figure out if there's room to negotiate. It's possible she might not need to eat or drink, but she has other stressors. That fuckery with the Simorg, sorry, chicken.
Imp swears more than that.
It's a stressor for the Titan, I said, which means maybe there's room to steer this, or maybe she's so focused on her end that she can't see what lies beyond it. But a lot of that depends on talking to the person, and that means we need to access Kenzie's tech.
Which isn't doable, Rain said.
I really, really hope she's okay,
I said. I looked back at Chicken Little.
Thanks for the info. Tell us if anything changes.
Yeah, for right now, I'll get her stuff, he said, quiet. I've got a sheet of instructions.
I'll help,
Chris said.
Be nice, I told him.
I'm a tinker,
Chris said.
I might be able to warn him about stuff he could mess up.
I can't believe you hid that from us, Rain said. Chris only shrugged, loping over to the box with an ape-like body and mostly ordinary head. Can we do this? Rain asked. Because I'm hearing all of this and my head is spinning.
Oh, good.
Oh, no, that's Chicken Little, not Chris. Rain asked. Because I'm hearing all of this and my head is spinning. Oh, good, Chicken Little said. It's not just me. Rain put out his hand, and Chicken Little gave him a high five, before crouching down by the box and straightening out the folded piece of paper he'd been given.
The mountain of a crisis we're trying to overcome here is deserving of head spinning, I said. It's scary. It's big. I don't disagree with you two.
I'd rather go with my plans,
Chris muttered.
Which are?
Sveta asked.
Not doable anymore, so let's do this instead.
Let's say we can get to this window of opportunity you're talking about,
Sveta said.
What do we do then? You wanted them to stumble? That's the basic idea, and for that we need something big. Big in what sense? Big in the messy sense, in the blood, guts, altering our machinery sense.
Sveta stared at me. Behind her, Rain and Byron exchanged a look. Sveta's eyes narrowed.
You don't mean Chris?
I shook my head.
What happened out there, between the time you left and the time you caught up with us again? I found Chicken, and I saw some things in the crystals that helped clarify things. The pieces to a puzzle I didn't know I was trying to solve. I don't want to be presumptuous, but I feel like you seemed to feel after you got your body. We went to a spot where I saw someone who was important to me once, Chicken Little said. Someone who looked like her mom, and some older guy, and a teenager. Nope. That's different context. Where I saw someone who was important to me once, Chicken Little said. Someone who looked like her mom, and some older guy, and a teenager. My first instinct is to ask if Master Stranger protocols are in order, she said, and her voice was quieter than it had been. You were worried about keywords or... Stumble. Stranger protocols are in order, she said, and her voice was quieter than it had been. You were worried about keywords or implanted phrases, and we never technically rescinded that, did we? Nothing to do with my sister. My mom, my Uncle Neil, and Dean. But you want to go to her and collaborate? She's the scariest damn person. Neil and Dean. But you want to go to her and collaborate? She's the scariest damn person in the world. Still? Sveta asked. Still, I said, my expression like stone. If it comes down... Oops. Sorry, 1 second. Why am I getting beep boops? Okay. Cool. All right, where am I? If it comes down... I asked. Still, I said, my expression like stone. If it comes down to pointing her at the monsters we're trying to stop, then that's what we do. Let's get packed up, Sveta said, not taking her eyes off me. While we're heading out, we can catch Victoria up what we were able to... Victoria up with what... Yeah, right. Sveta said, not taking her eyes off me. While we're heading out, we can catch Victoria up with what we were able to figure out while she was gone. We'll see who we can convince about getting imprisoned or locked up by the wardens. Insert time jump beat here. And I'm going to have a sip of water. Pardon me. Insert time jump beat here. Our arrival at Cauldron saw a bit of a splitting up of our group. Imp was sitting on the stairs, wearing her black bodysuit and gray mask, a black scarf wrapped around her neck, and a leather jacket for the added warmth. Aiden ran over to her to ask questions, then ran back to Chris, who was carrying Kenzie's tech. There were others present, too. Jessica, my mom, Aunt Sarah. I veered in Imp's direction before she could disappear on us. I flew to get there faster, landing on stairs.
Hey,
Imp said.
there was a whole thing.
I know.
We thought you might. Darlene said she was connected. Hey,
Imp said.
there was a whole thing.
I know.
We thought you might. Darlene said she was connected to the chicken.
What happened? I asked. Imp shook her head.
Capricorn dying? It was the straw that broke the camel's back. She confessed feelings for Candy, apparently, and didn't take being turned down well. There's more to it, but Tattletale told me to let her share that when you come up. She thinks I'll be undiplomatic or some bullcrap like that.
I sighed, heavy. Did you talk to Jessica over there?
She came by, talked with Tattletale.
Okay, I've got stuff to figure out. She's going to be unconscious for another 45 minutes minimum?
Tattletale figured an hour to 2 hours.
The number boy estimated lower, but okay.
Okay,
Imp said. Aiden and Chris caught up with us. Chris still carried the tech. I gave him the side eye. He growled.
I'll carry it up. After seeing you manhandle that gun, I have to. My tinker pride can't endure anything else.
Will we catch up with you after? Do we meet up? I asked.
No, I don't know. I have to check on my giants. I told them to rest after the big retreat.
I nodded.
We might need them, depending,
he said, his back to me as he started trudging upstairs, already leaving.
I'll fill them in.
I can do that after.
I'd rather do that than have you give them the wrong impressions.
I'll do it,
he said more firmly. I relented. It wasn't worth fighting, and Chris was too problematic. One didn't poke a bear, and he was an especially surly bear. Already, I was conserving my energy, preparing. The breath I took felt like a lungful of air still.
Thanks for the help, Chicken Little,
I said as Chicken followed Chris.
Really.
Sure, happy to.
Good kid. Fuck me, was I worried about Kenzie. I was worried about Byron. I was worried about Sveta. Even Rain looking dog-tired, his nice new costume caked with mud and dust. I felt a pang of guilt seeing them greet Jessica. I'd wanted to protect them. I'd failed. 2 dead, 1 imprisoned, and if I counted Rain, the only reason he wasn't in prison as well was that the prison had been attacked. It took more willpower to approach that dynamic than it had taken for me to hurl myself into physical contact with Titan Scotty. I floated over the railing of the stairwell and down. Restate that. Re-emphasis. Dynamic than it had taken for me to hurl myself into physical contact with Titan Scotty. I floated over the railing of the stairwell and down.
Would really advise contacting your mother. If you wait, she may see it as a betrayal.
I know, Byron said. A part of me was hoping for a magic solution. Kenzie was saying she might have ideas, but then she went silent. We just heard.
Yes, Jessica said. I talked to Tattletale.
Yeah,
Byron said.
Focus on your family for now.
For right now.
Said. I talked to Tattletale.
Yeah,
Byron said.
Focus on your family for right now. Kenzie is resting, but even if she were awake, I don't think there would be much you could say or do.
I'll contact my mom next. It won't be easy.
Do you want help? We could talk about how to go about it, Jessica said.
That would be appreciated,
he said.
I am sorry for your loss, she told him. For Rain, Sveta, and Victoria as well. You must be so anxious about Byron and Kenzie.
I'm sorry, I said,
that it happened. All of this was a long time in the making. It's unfortunate it came to a head today, but it's understandable. Everyone is frightened, and she's young. Battlefields don't make good therapy couches.
It felt like a condemnation.
This world of ours doesn't let children off easy, my mother said. Sometimes you can't avoid the battlefield. Life goes on, life gets hard, and we have to live it regardless.
I expected Jessica to say something to that. A rebuttal like one of the ones she'd given me.
To live it regardless.
I expected Jessica to say something to that. A rebuttal like one of the ones she'd given me when I'd argued about Cape society versus her ideal world for capes, but instead, she was silent.
I want to avoid this battlefield,
I filled in the silence.
Circumvent it. It's part of why I wanted to talk to my sister. We were discussing that while we waited, my mother said, looking over at Jessica. Darnall has been talking to Amelia Levere. We were discussing that while we waited, my mother said, looking over at Jessica. Darnall has been talking to Amelia Levere, Jessica said, and her tone of voice had changed from compassion to something more guarded and measured. It's been hours, with breaks for Darnall and Amelia to rest and eat. Wayne needed to take a break to check on other patients in crisis. I wouldn't expect miracles. I'm not looking for miracles, I told her. I'm not expecting miracles. But I guess this is a Hail Mary? A long-shot attempt at trying to get the stars to align, make something happen.
Rain snorted. I looked at him, but his mask covered his face, and I couldn't read his expression or guess about the nature of the snort.
Can I talk to her? I asked. It's
kind of critically important. You know it would have to be for me to even ask.
I don't, Jessica started. We can ask, my mother said.
I don't think it would be good for anyone involved, Jessica said. Not Victoria, and not Amelia. I'm not expecting it to be, I told her. Not for either of us. But there are billions or trillions of other lives out there who die if this planet isn't in one piece. I just have to ask, get answers. To avoid putting 100 kids like Kenzie on battlefields. Avoid a losing fight.
Thousands more deaths, Byron said from the sidelines. I nodded, somber. Jessica didn't give me my answer, or she already had. My mother, though, told me,
She's downstairs. I can show you the way.
I nodded. I'll stick up here, Byron said. Talk about this phone call I gotta make.
I can't imagine this will take long, I told him. But if there's anything you need me to do, I'll do what I can.
I don't think there's anything anyone can do. Gotta face the music, he said. His helmet was under one arm. His expression was... It made him look a lot younger than he was. I was used to viewing Tristan and Byron as veteran capes with years under their belt, and more than enough hardship giving them a measure of grit. And here, Byron was a boy who wasn't old enough to vote, preparing to tell his mom that his brother was dead. He looked scared. Rain laid a hand on his upper arm.
Do you need me?
Sveta asked me. I thought about saying yes, but she'd known Tristan. She and he had bonded over their fan worship of Weld.
No, you do this.
You do this. Wrong emphasis again. She'd known Tristan. She and he had bonded over their fan worship of Weld.
No, you do this.
She nodded, but she looked wary. She glanced back at the number boy. Nobody here was sure about what they were doing. Fuck. What the hell were we doing? If we saw another battlefield, if we saw that battlefield that the Simorgh had been on, I wasn't sure our minds wouldn't shatter into a million pieces before she even screamed.
The elevator is this way,
my mother said. I followed her. Aunt Sarah floated along, and I took to the air, floating at a similar height, feet a few inches above the ground. The elevator was beneath the big set of stairs that led from the lobby to the upper floors. Sveta had covered the general layout when we'd been looking into raiding teachers' headquarters. She'd studied the entire structure when the irregulars had been planning the attack. We headed toward the dungeon, the cells, where thousands of lives had been stolen away and kept. The elevator box was large enough to fit a car in, but we were the only occupants. It jolted and then began descending. If it had been the size of an ordinary elevator, the ceiling would have hit my head before I remembered I needed to fly down. I shifted orientation, lying against the ceiling so my back was flat against it, and I pulled out my phone. I navigated to Vista, and I sent her a quick message. Busy fighting. I told her to check in with Byron regardless. He'd probably need it. I looked down at my mom from above as the elevator then descended. I looked down at my mom from above as the elevator then descended, moving down a bit faster than the... Looked down at my mom from above as the elevator then descended, moving down... Okay, I think as the elevator's not supposed to be there. Fighting. I told her to check in with Byron regardless. He'd probably need it. I looked down at my mom from above, then descended, moving down a bit faster than the elevator did to return to ordinary height.
You're planning,
my mother started, but I put my arms around her, hugging her from the side. She was hesitant, but she returned the hug.
What's this about?
She asked.
I love you. I saw stuff in the crystal. I felt
A hug.
What's this about?
she asked.
I love you. I saw stuff in the crystal. I felt the need to reaffirm that. This feels like a goodbye, she told me. It's not.
I broke the hug as the elevator came to a stop.
Would you mind if I leaned on you? My mother asked me. I'm still unsteady.
I floated down until my 2 feet, now uninjured, were on the ground. She leaned on me. We walked down the hall, and we rounded a corner. These weren't the cells where the prisoners had been held captive, but it was close. The ceiling was high, supported by pillars, and the rooms were solid and blocked off, in much the same way the apartments on the upper floors were. The difference was that each structure was its own building, contained within one floor of a larger building. It wasn't warm in the slightest, owing in large part to the spacing of the lighting. It made me think this was a defensive position, and some of the evidence of cleanup efforts told me I wasn't wrong. I felt trepidation. I'd made internal resolutions, and I wasn't sure I'd abandoned them. Wayne was sitting outside one building. He stood as he saw us. Aunt Sarah took over supporting my mom. I flew over. The building he was beside, she was in there. Not quite a cell, but a solid concrete structure paneled in white tile, reinforced doors and windows. It wasn't not like a cell.
Thank you for doing this, I told him.
There are 10 different things wrong with this, he said. Conflict of interest, the timing, the seriousness of it.
Were you able to talk to her?
He nodded.
Can I talk to her?
I asked him. Is it a good idea? He asked.
It might be a necessary idea,
I said, but even as I voiced the thought, I was aware of contradictions. You wanted this, and the fact you wanted this was a good part of the reason I accepted. Jessica agreed. Someone needed to talk to her. Pulling her away from therapy after that? I couldn't disagree. That was the hellish contradiction here. If I was going to use her, then I was asking her to abandon therapy, and I had already resolved to kill her if she did just that. And that didn't even touch on what Chris had told me about. Isn't it better to leave this alone? Darnall asked. My heart was pounding. I wanted to say yes. I wasn't even sure if I could have explained my full rationale for saying no, or if I could have explained my plan. I was going to have to, I knew. I was mentally preparing for the wardens to admit they didn't have an idea. Then, I'd tell them I wanted to skip ahead to where our opponents won and use their momentum against them, and hope the wardens were on board. It wasn't all I could think of, but we didn't even have the initial elements we needed to make it happen. Can't, I said. The door squeaked. I wasn't the only one who tensed. Darnall, my mom, my aunt. She stood with her body leaning against the door, wearing the same clothes that had been issued to the refugees that had been moved into this building. Plain, simple. Her hair was tied into a loose ponytail, her arms exposed, those damned tattoos showing. The way she stood, her back was to me. She could, I imagine, see Darnall out of the corner of her eye. I don't recommend this, Darnall said.
You were just telling me I need to develop my listening skills, she replied.
That was not an invitation to not listen. I exhaled, and the exhale came with a shudder. I really couldn't think of better ways. There was a bit more peace at the end of that exhalation and shudder than there might have otherwise been.
Dove into the architecture of powers a bit ago, I said, raising my voice to be heard. We got some insights, got some clarity. The world's due to end in 2 hours. That simplifies things, doesn't it? Amy asked.
I wasn't sure how to respond to her. On a level, her talking made my brain flinch away, made me feel stupid. How much of me had wanted to do this just to prove to myself I was stronger, that the revelation back there had meant something when it came to Amy? Had I blocked off thinking about other avenues of self I was stronger, that the revelation back there had meant something when it came to Amy? Had I blocked off thinking about other avenues out of a desire to inflict this on myself?
I saw scenes from our childhood, stuff to do with Mom, Uncle Neil, and Dean. You were there. Fucking up? She asked. No, I said. Just there. Talking about Roraxia and fantasy books. The talk, Amy said, still without turning around.
Dot crawled up Amy and perched on her shoulder, sitting backwards so she could watch me, wearing purple overalls with no shirt.
Yeah, the talk. I'd mostly forgotten. I didn't. I couldn't pick up another book in the Roar series without thinking about Mom getting on my case in front of everyone. Amy with no friends, no hobbies. She's small.
I looked at my mom. My mom was frowning.
Thanks for doing this, talking to the therapist,
I said. I avoid using his name so the conflict of interest wouldn't be so jarringly obvious a conflict. If he hadn't told her he'd seen me, I wouldn't be avoid using his name so the conflict of interest wouldn't be so jarringly obvious a conflict. If he hadn't told her he'd seen me, I wouldn't provide the missing piece of information.
You don't need to do this,
Amy said.
Do what? Talk to me, like it's you fulfilling your end of the deal. Don't worry. I'll keep my appointments. I'll talk about my feelings.
The world's ending, Amy, I told her. 2 hours. You could sit down to watch some movies and the world would end before you're done.
People will save it.
Multiple precogs are locked into that end result. Titan Fortuna, the Simorg. It seems pretty inevitable at this point. The door creaked as she stopped leaning against it. She turned to face me. I didn't look directly at her, instead staring down the long aisle, or street, that ran between the solid buildings on this level of Cauldron's dungeon.
You really believe that?
She said.
I know it. No, I refuse to believe that. We could use some raw power. Talking to you like this, it's scary, but I'm not...
She didn't finish the sentence, but I could tell how tense she was.
But I thought I'd bite the bullet. See if you were willing. I can't think of any others who really fit the bill for what we want, who are still around. But I thought I'd bite the bullet. See if you were willing. I can't think of any others who really fit the bill for what we want, who are still around. Labrat said you understood a lot of what was happening before others did. Both times the world ended. As scary as it is to do this, we could use insight. We could use your power. We're trying to stop a greater life form's life cycle. You shape life. My power stops where the passengers begin, she said. You know that. We've figured out ways to tweak powers. I've altered mine. Depending on what you were willing to do, we could alter yours. And the last time I broke rules, I created Khepri. She played a big part in stopping the last end of the world, but things are different now.
Khepri. The words were intimidating to hear, especially spoken so frankly.
You said things are different now. Different how? I asked. The last time, I thought I'd done something unforgivable and irrevocable. I ruined you. It's freeing, you know? To hit rock bottom, to lose everything. I was in the deepest, darkest pit on Earth, surrounded by monsters in what a lot of people would call hell. It gives you courage to know that there's nothing you could do that would be worse than what's already happened.
Amy, I said, what you did was unforgivable and irrevocable. She shook her head.
I live with what happened to me every minute of every day. I slept with a guy yesterday morning, and you'd better believe it impacted every second of that experience. You're just saying that to hurt me. A bit, yeah, I told her. But more importantly, nothing's changed from back then. Whatever courage or bullshit you're saying is linked to you being at rock bottom, fucking hello, Amy, you're in a dungeon in a strange earth and the world's about to end. Where the hell do you think you are?
Is this productive? Darnall asked.
She's at...
I turned.
You're at fucking rock bottom, Amy. In that vision, I saw us being friends. I saw us happy we might be in the same art class together. I loved that girl who retreated into books and hated 90% of middle school and high school, but stuck her chin out and did stuff because she was brave. We lost that, and that's a fucking tragedy. And I am sorry, I really am, for the parts I played in that tragedy unfolding. But don't pretend that what you did, a set of choices you made, isn't something that I'm going to be carrying. Oh, damn it. All right. But don't pretend that what you did, a set of choices you made, isn't something that I'm going to be carrying until the end of the... until the world ends, damn it. But don't pretend that what you did, a set of choices you made, isn't something that I'm going to be carrying until the end... Damn it, I did it again. Until the world ends. But don't pretend that what you did, a set of choices you made, isn't something that I'm going to be carrying until the world ends in 2 fucking hours. I'm not pretending, but it's still different now, she said. I made all these resolutions. I told myself I'd used what I figured out about passengers to help save the world, if only I could get out of the birdcage. I put everything on the line. I thought that was it. I was convinced you were dead. And then Khepri drops you off a few feet in front of me.
I was still breathing hard from shouting. I watched her, her eyes on her feet.
I could fix things, she told me, and her eyes met mine. Erase your memory, alter your emotions. Whatever happened to your body, I could alter it, change it back.
Like you fixed Hunter? I asked her, my throat tight, a feeling like if I swallowed wrong, bile might rise in my throat.
I was getting to that, she said. Please get to it then, I told her. After I fixed you, the wardens were protective of me, watching me. I was on my own for the first time ever, even if I did talk to Carol and Mark. But always with an awareness that I had the absolute power to fix my situation. I didn't think, that there's anyone out there who wouldn't break down if they were that alone and that all-powerful. I don't think. But always with an awareness that I had the absolute power to fix my situation. I don't think, that there's anyone out there who wouldn't break down if they were that alone and that all-powerful. I can think of a few names, I told her. I was on a long, slow path to getting nothing before, and then every fuck-up gave me everything except the one thing I didn't realize I needed. I needed rock bottom. I told myself I wanted other things, but I needed the safety of having nothing left to lose. Instead, I got Goddess, and then I got Shin, a nation of my own, my parents with me. You came to me.
I pulled off the bandages at my hand, and I held it up. Fingernail still missing, nail bed still raw.
Yeah, she said. I fixed you, then hid the fix. I changed your emotions, to flirt with the idea of it.
I felt like my body couldn't generate warmth. Something inside of me dying from the wrenching cold. I couldn't let her see me flinch.
I fucked up Hunter, she told me.
She looked genuinely sad as she stroked Dot, who had settled into her arms.
I promised myself I'd fix her, and it would be my first step. I couldn't. That's when I realized about the rock bottom.
I shook my head. My volume wasn't enough that I was sure she would hear.
I don't see how what you did to me couldn't be your rock bottom. You're telling me you got over it? My dad likes his personal rules, and I think I operate the same way. I could say that, what happened to you, never again, until it became clear that that was reversible. I reversed it on the eve of Gold Morning. It wouldn't have even been hard to go further. I could have changed the minds of everyone in our family, everyone we knew. I care. It crushes me. I have nightmares about it, but
I looked away.
I hurt Hunter. I changed her personality without meaning to, and then I let her become a Titan. I couldn't fix it. I felt clarity again, like I did in the birdcage. I don't think I could bring myself to use my power on you again. Old guilt is mixing with new guilt, and I don't feel like it's all reversible. I don't feel omnipotent. I know I hurt you. I feel sick about things that seemed matter-of-fact before. All it took was another life ruined? I asked. Hunter's?
Her posture seemed to crumple at that. I could think of that crumpling in the face of Carol's withering criticisms, of struggles in school. I could have done more back then, maybe. Possibly. I relented. I turned so I couldn't even see her in my peripheral vision.
Can we count on you?
I asked, and my voice was softer.
We need help. No,
she told me.
No?
I echoed her.
I'm going to keep talking to Dr. Darnall as long as he's willing to listen, even if it's only for the next 2 hours. He was telling me about doctors, nurses, and burnout, the effects it can have. He said other stuff. It made sense. I can give you guys information if it helps. I have a good mental picture of how a lot of this fits together, but I think it might be better if I never use my powers ever again.
Even to keep that thing you tucked in your bra alive? I asked her. There was silence. I looked at Dr. Darnall, at my mother, at Aunt Sarah, who hung back at the corner, not quite in Amy's view.
I fed it to Dot after waking up this morning, while Dr. Darnall was getting coffee and breakfast.
I looked over at Amy, staring into her eyes. Had she moved in that instant, or flickered an eye to look at my mom, if she was even in sight, lurking at the corner of a building, or had... to look at my mom, if she was even in sight, lurking at the corner of a building, or had Amy said a word, I would have used my aura, full strength, turned just to include Amy and her pet goblin in its range. I would have explored it and checked to see if it tapped into other feelings. But she didn't move a hair, and I believed her. I hated that I believed her, but I believed her. Hated it, because this end result, this particular course of the conversation, with contradictions like me needing her help and me wanting to kill her if she gave up on therapy, or the things I wanted to hear her say, and my unwillingness to believe her if she said those things, this was the only way I could imagine the conversation would have ended where I didn't kill her before, during, or after the matter of the world ending. Leaving me with a vague plan and none of the pieces or powers I needed to pull it into place. I flew away. Alrighty. 19.10. We are so close to the end. I cannot freaking wait. Oh my god, it's going to be wonderful. 19.10, infrared. Of course, I'm going to have to switch over to editing for a few weeks, but soon this monstrosity will be complete. All right. Well, I need to do a little bit of finalization stuff on these to get them ready to post for my editors. So I'm not going to make you sit through that, especially because Audacity doesn't like to show its pop-up windows. But yeah, so thank you for watching. I'm glad to be back streaming, like things other than X-Wing. And yeah, let's see. I might do something Friday night. We'll see. Who knows? The world's a crazy place. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I shall catch you next time. Later.